What is happening, people, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Whether you've come here from Twitter, TikTok, wherever you've come from, I appreciate you being here. We're going to kick it off today with a tier list. We're going to do part 1 of the greatest directors of all time tier list. Obviously, I can't fit all of the greats and all people in contention on just one tier list video because that would take absolutely fucking hours. So it's just going to be this selection for now. I basically went on IMDb, Letterboxd, went on popular directors and selected a few bunch of random ones, and then we'll continue doing that until we get, in my opinion, the greatest directors ever. Before we carry on, please feel free to hit like, hit subscribe, all that stuff. But I think, time to pretty much get into it. Won't waste any more of your time. We're going to go through the best directors with 5 tiers today. We've got the S tier, which is the top tier, in contention for the best ever kind of tier. A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier. And just because someone is in D tier doesn't mean that they're a bad filmmaker. This is just my personal opinion, my personal preferences. And in D tier of a list such as this, it's definitely not a bad thing. You're not bottom of the barrel in terms of filmmakers by any means. Without further ado, let's just kick into it. We have up first, we have Stanley Kubrick. Now, I'm going to hit you with my favourite director of all time. Stanley Kubrick is undoubtedly in the highest tier of directors for me. He has to be at that S tier, not only for the influence he's had on films, but his films himself, his style, his filmmaking approach, and just the influence he's had on cinema altogether, which means he has to be at the S tier. I think that is a guaranteed, in my opinion anyway. We've got M. Night next. M. Night for me is a filmmaker that is incredibly overhated, I would say, in the film industry sometimes. Not particularly in the film industry, maybe critically, but more or less a social media side of things. I think he's a very, very talented filmmaker. I think he's a very unique filmmaker, and I think he presents narratives in a way that some people can't adjust to, I guess. These films are different. We look at Old, we look at Knock at the Cabin. They are different sorts of pictures, but I think he does it really, really well. I think he's skilled when it comes to his camera, the composition. I think he's an incredible director. I don't think, on this list, he's not going to be the highest of tiers, but I do think he goes to kind of the top end of the C tier. Again, that's not an insult on this kind of list, though. We've got Brian De Palma next. Brian De Palma has done so many classics. You're looking at Blowout, you're looking at Untouchables, you're looking at Scarface, you're looking at Carlito's Way, for example, and many, many more. He has to be in this highest tier for me. I think Brian De Palma is deservedly... I think I'm going to put him in A. I think I'm going to put Brian De Palma in A, to be honest with you. I think he deserves to be there. Alfred Hitchcock is next. I'll have you guess where I'm going to put him. Of course, I'm going to put him in A tier. Revolutionised the thriller genre. His films are still some of the most enjoyable films I've ever seen today. An incredible filmmaker with an adept style that just has influenced so much of cinema. He has to be in the highest tier. Sits in nicely next to Kubrick, of course. Ridley Scott is next. Now, Ridley Scott for me is a filmmaker which has done so many great films. You're looking at Gladiators, you're looking at Alien, but then you're also looking at newer films, such as The Last Duel, Prometheus, that sort of thing. But I think Ridley Scott for me, I don't think he'd be quite the level of. But then you've got the Blade Runners as well. No, I think Ridley Scott goes in A tier. I think he does. I think Ridley Scott goes right nicely into A tier because you've got Blade Runner, you've got Gladiator, you've got Alien, you've got a lot of the classics. He's influenced so many different genres. I think he has to be in there, specifically sci-fi. I'm going to put Ridley Scott in A tier, but again, we might change things at the end. I might allow myself 3 changes. Christopher Nolan is next. I'm certainly not as high on Christopher Nolan as a lot of people. I think he does struggle with his exposition at times and his characters, but I do think he's a very, very talented filmmaker that maybe deserves a little bit more respect than he actually gets. Christopher Nolan's a hard one because he would either be sort of the lower end of A for me or B. What we'll do, we'll put him in A for now, and then I'll switch people around so they can be the upper end of the tier later down the line. Spielberg is next. I think he's probably in the contention for me in my top sort of 20 filmmakers of all time. I think his influence can't be ignored. I think he created the Sun blockbuster, and I think he's done some very memorable and incredible films. Raiders, Jurassic Park, Saving Private Ryan, as much as you think it's propaganda or not. Schindler's List being by far his best in my opinion, and whether you like the films or don't, you can't really argue the influence he's had on cinema. So I'm gonna put him in S tier. He'd be kind of the lower end of S tier for now, and we can make changes at the end, but that's where he's gonna go for now. Tim Burton is next. Tim Burton, you either love him or you don't, or you don't like him. His aesthetic will work or it won't. For me, it's half and half. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. I think he offers a lot in terms of his filmmaking ability, and you know, you look at classics, Sleepy Hollow, Edward Scissorhands. These are classic films that have influenced their respective genres. But in my personal preference, I think he'd go C tier. I don't think he's bottom of the barrel. I think he's C tier for me. Todd Phillips is next. Todd Phillips is going to be my first D tier. I'm not really too sure as to why he was on there, but he is a popular director. You know, you're looking at the Hangover films, which are very popular. Hangover 1 is great, in my opinion. And then also Joker. I'm not a huge fan of Joker. I think, you know, King of Comedy, Taxi Driver, but I think it's a really accomplished film, and I think he's clearly a talented filmmaker, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the second. However, for now, I think D tier is valid. Peter Jackson's next. I'm going to try and not let my bias get in the way with this. Lord of the Rings is my favourite film of all time, and he clearly has an eye for fantasy, and I think he deserves to be up there. I also think King Kong is very, not underrated, but underappreciated. I think King Kong's a lot better than most people think. I also think Lovely Bones is pretty good, but then he's done some films which aren't so good as well. But The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits, I think a keen eye for fantasy, and I probably right now would put him maybe high C tier. I'm gonna put him in B tier. He'd be the low B tier. We'll sort it out, but I think B tier for now. David Fincher is next. The thriller genre wouldn't really be where it is without him. Again, I'm not as high on him as other people, but I think he deserves to be in this block. I'm probably gonna put Fincher in A tier as well with Nolan. I think he'd probably be around that same quality. Now this might shock people here, but I'm gonna put Paul Thomas Anderson in S tier. Paul Thomas Anderson, for me, is one of the greatest filmmakers of this generation, and I think he has done so many incredible films. You know, you're looking at Boogie Nights, you're looking at There Will Be Blood, you're looking at The Master, you're looking at Phantom Thread, you're looking at... my mind's just completely blank from all the films he's done, but you get the point I'm saying. I think he's revolutionised filmmaking. I think he is an incredible director that probably deserves the praise he gets. I would have him, you know, the lowest end of S tier, but I think he'd probably be in, you know, the top 30 filmmakers of all time, top 50 maybe, whatever it might be. But I think he's very, very high up there, and he definitely gets a lot of respect from his followers and loyalists and fans. And I'm not one of those. I think I've still not seen one or two of his films, but the point still stands that he's right up there, in my opinion, just above the kind of Nolans and Finchers of this period as well. We've got Tarantino next. I think Tarantino sits nicely next to kind of David Fincher, kind of the lower end of A tier. An incredible screenwriter, no doubt in my mind, incredible at writing dialogue, just incredible filmmaker in general. Some of his films aren't to my taste. I like all his films. I don't really love any, maybe one or two, probably Pulp Fiction and Django are probably up there in terms of the ones I really, really like. But I think he goes nicely into A tier. Francis Ford Coppola is next. Francis Ford Coppola, obviously, we don't even have to mention that, you know, The Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Godfather 3, I still think is a good film, but even, you know, Apocalypse Now, again, we don't have to mention that because everyone knows how good that is, but even, you know, the Draculas, The Conversation, films that have had a massive, you know, influence on cinema, films that people still watch and enjoy just as much as his other films. I particularly like Dracula quite a lot. I think that's great. I think on those films alone, and the rest that he's done, but particularly, you know, the basic ones, The God of Oz, Apocalypse Now, I would have him in the A tier category. Yeah, I probably would have him in the A tier category, the S tier category. Sorry, it would be like lower S tier. But I'm definitely gonna have him up there. We've got Sam Mendes next. Sam Mendes is a very talented filmmaker. I think he's done some great films. 1917, American Beauty. I don't think he'd be the highest tier on this list. I don't think he'd get quite into A tier, as I don't love American Beauty as much as others. But I think B tier is probably where I'd have him for now. Yeah, I'll have him around the same as M. Night. I think maybe Sam Mendes is a low B tier, so M. Night's like the really high C tier. Coen brothers, I think they're one of the greatest, some of the greatest filmmakers ever. I think they've done so many fantastic films. You're looking at Oh Brother Where Art Thou, you're looking at Fargo, you're looking at No Country for Old Men. I think that they are the highest level. I really, really do. And I'm probably going to have to drop some people off S tier now because it's getting a bit ridiculous, but I'm going to put them into S tier for now. We've got Frank Darabont left. Obviously, he did, you know, you're looking at, you know, the main two, Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile. He also did The Mist, which I think is very, very good, but his whole filmography is not as varied and consistent as maybe some of the... Well, it's consistent, but not as varied as some of the others on this list. So I think he'd go... For Shawshank and Green Mile alone, I think he'd go into B tier. I've just not seen enough to warrant higher. And again, this is just personal preference. We've got Bong Joon-ho next. The first... Parasite was obviously the first non-English Best Picture winner. Well, non-English speaking, should I say. I think Memories of Murder, Mother, Parasite, Snowpiercer, The Host... I think he's done some very, very good films. I think he's an incredibly accomplished filmmaker and extremely consistent. I love the way he's able to mix in comedy with these dramatic themes. I think he goes nicely to A tier. And I'm gonna have to stop loading these top 2 tiers. I'm gonna have to change some things at the end. Robert Zemeckis, he's done Back to the Future, which are great. I love Back to the Future. I don't love Forrest Gump. He also did Castaway, which I think is good. I think Robert Zemeckis is a solid B tier. I think he's a solid B tier. Now we're gonna get another S tier because I can't put Martin Scorsese anywhere else. Martin Scorsese, yes, has done a lot of mob films, but it's not what he's relied on. I think it's a common misconception that's all he does. He's so varied with his filmography. It has to be 80s. There's way too many classics for him not to be. Now, Darren Aronofsky, I would have put in kind of the B tier, A tier range, but The Whale did let it down for me slightly. I think he still goes into B tier. I think he'd be a lower B tier though. Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, Mother, which I really liked. I know a lot of people didn't, but I think he has to go in there for me. James Cameron, you can't ignore the impact he's had on film. The visual effects, the huge blockbusters have had such an influence. He has to be A tier. Danny Boyle's an interesting one. I think Danny Boyle's done some great films. I think Danny Boyle, you're looking at Shallow Grave, you're looking at 28 Days Later, which is one of my personal favourites. You're looking at Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours. I think for me, he would go into C tier. Very, very capable filmmaker, very good, just not like top tier. Now, Celine Sciamma, I can't remember her last name. I think it's pronounced like that. From the 3 films I've seen, she's a fantastic filmmaker. I think she's only done 4 or 5 feature films, so it's obviously a bit early on to say. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Petite Maman, 2 films that came out in 2019 and 2021, which are both in my all-time favourites, especially Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think she has got so much more to come, and I think she's an incredible filmmaker. I think she goes into B tier for now, and potentially even A, potentially S tier down the line. Who knows? Denis is one that is everyone people think is the highest tier of filmmaking now. I probably would have him around the Nolans, around the Tarantinos. I think he's very consistent. I don't think he's done a bad film in my opinion. I think he's a great filmmaker. Okay, Wes Anderson is next. Wes Anderson has an aesthetic that you love or hate. He won't work for others and he will work for some. I think Wes Anderson works for me most of the time. I haven't seen all his filmography yet. I'm going to slot him into B tier. A very, very accomplished filmmaker, no doubt. Thomas Vinterberg is next. I've clearly had all the higher ones at the start, so I need to start dropping some down. Thomas Vinterberg, he's only done like 6 feature films, I think. I've only seen like 4 of them. And The Celebration, Another Round, and The Hunt are that good, in my opinion. I'm going to shock you. I'm going to go into A tier. I know he'd be the lower end of A tier, don't get me wrong, but he's such a capable screenwriter, filmmaker. I love his ability to the influence he's had on, obviously he started the Dogma 95 movement with Lars von Trier, who will come up in a second. And I think the influence he's had on cinema, he can't be ignored. A tier. Roman Polanski. If we're going to put, let's be fair, if it's going to be a human-based tier list, he would go down a D tier. But it's not. He's going to be A tier. He's going to be. And that shames me. That saddens me. But he's going to have to be. Rob Reiner is next. Rob Reiner's done some really good films. I think, you're looking at Princess Bride. Rob Reiner, I think, would go into kind of the higher end of C tier. I think the higher end of C tier for now. Maybe B tier. I think the higher end of C tier fits him well now, but we'll see. Michael Mann, a genius when it comes to sort of crime, thrillers, heist movies. You're looking at Thieves, you're looking at Heat, you're looking at Miami Vice, you're looking at Manhunter. For now, I think I'd put him in the highest range of B tier, but that could move up when I change things at the end. We have another S tier. Ingmar Bergman has evoked more emotions in me that I didn't know were possible from the medium of filmmaking. I think he deserves well into S tier. I think I'd put him right at the top of S tier as well. An unbelievable filmmaker. Just incredible. I think my favourites from him would be Through a Glass Darkly, Persona, Autumn Sonata. I think I'm in my top 3. Autumn Sonata, Persona, and Through a Glass Darkly are my top 3. Bergman. Richard Linklater is next, and we're going to have another A tier. I'm sorry. Richard Linklater is a genius. He's a genius screenwriter. You're looking at even from Dazed and Confused, School of Rock to even the Before trilogy, just a genius screenplay. He's going to go, he's A tier for me. He is. Chris Columbus is next, apparently one of the most popular on IMDb, obviously for, it's probably going to be down to Harry Potter, the first 2 Harry Potters, the Home Alone movies, which are cult classics in their own right. I don't think he deserves to be a D tier. I think a C tier is fine. Home Alone, I love them too much, I can't put him there, but then he is with Danny Boyle and Tim Burton. I think I'm going to put him the high end of D tier for now. Still a really capable filmmaker though. Mel Gibson is next. I don't love Mel Gibson as much as others, I'll be honest. I think he would be the bottom end of B tier for me. He's done some great films. Bottom end B tier. Now George Lucas, I think George Lucas is a better producer, a better entrepreneur, a better I think he's not the best filmmaker, I would put George Lucas at the bottom C tier. I think you give him credit for Revenge of the Sith, and you give him credit for what he did A New Hope, but that's about it. I think I'm really the bottom C tier. He's looking on to get to B tier. Greta Gerwig, she's very early on in her career. I think she's done 3 feature films. They've all been good. Little Women and Lady Bird being very good in my opinion. I think she goes into that C tier category for now, but she can and will get much higher on this list. We have another S tier spot. No, we have an A tier spot for now. I'm going to put animation. I'm going to put Hayao Miyazaki at A tier, but he's going to be the highest end of A tier. The highest end of A tier. It's what he's done for animation, what he's done for anime. He is an incredible filmmaker. He's incredibly consistent. He's never missed. He has to be in that A tier spot. Park Chan-wook is next, one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, and this may be early on. I'm going to go S tier. I think he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, in my opinion. Top 20, top 30, whatever it might be. I think he's a genius. I think he's a true genius. I think he has many perfect films. You're looking at Decision to Leave, looking at Handmaiden, you're looking at Oldboy, you're looking at the whole Vengeance trilogy. You're looking at JSA, you're looking at, what was the one he did? I can't remember. But anyway, amazing film. Amazing filmmaker, sorry. And Lars von Trier, you'll either love or hate. I think he's done some incredible films that I love, such as Dogville. I liked Melancholia, I liked Nymphomaniac Part 1. Didn't like the Part 2, but I also hated some of his films as well. A very capable filmmaker, no doubt. I think he has to go into B tier. Now, the changes we're going to have to make to this. Okay, so these 3 are going to stay there. Spielberg from Could Be 4, that's fine. I'm going to put Scorsese there. That's fine. I'm going to put Park Chan-wook a little bit higher. Okay. Miyazaki, yeah. I'm going to put Nolan. I'll probably put Nolan behind Fincher. I'll put Bong Joon-ho ahead. I'll put Roman Polanski ahead. I'll put Denis just ahead of James Cameron for me. Fincher is about right there. Richard Linklater I put ahead as well. I put him maybe here, honestly, above Roman Polanski. BT, I think Michael Mann's the highest. I think that's fair. I think I'd put Frank Darabont a little bit higher. I think Sam Mendes a little bit higher. Lars von Trier a little bit higher. Darren Aronofsky a little bit higher. I don't think Peter Jackson's there. I think Peter Jackson would go probably about here. Rosenbecker's, yeah, Celine, yeah. Wes Anderson higher. That's about right. That's about right for me. This tier is looking good as far as I'm concerned. I'd probably put Danny Boyle ahead of Rob Reiner, to be honest. Yeah, probably got that. I think that works. And the bottom 2 is absolutely fine with me. Anyway, hopefully you have enjoyed this tier list. Let me know what you want me to do next. I'm happy to do whatever you want. I really enjoy the tier list videos. Drop a like, drop a sub, and I will speak to you soon.